Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Matter of Trust. I am Yeshua, and with me today, as always, is Patrick. And today we have a very spontaneous theme we want to talk about. It's called love because we love that love. So yeah. And surprise, surprise, today we trying something new as well. We just going with whatever comes up. So you have no prepared questions or anything like that. It's just pure love and talking about love. So, Patrick, how about you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's funny that I first thought we were going to talk about laws and LAWS, and that's not the case. So when I realized it's love, it was a Danish English thing, and then I was like, okay, I ease into that because it's such a big thing, and with love you cannot really go wrong. So yeah, it felt nice. It felt good. So I
Awesome. Yeah, and to
eased into
just
it.
to clarify that which you said before for all our English listeners, love and lowe is written the same way, and lowe in Danish means laws. And I was writing my message in Danish, so understandably so, Patrick thought out and meant we should talk about laws, like spiritual laws or laws of whatever. But no, I'm in love. I'm in love. I should have clarified that a little bit more. But yeah, here we are talking about love.
You want to know what there's so many things to mention about that. But you know what was the first that came to my mind? It
I
was
want to know what first came to your mind. Yeah.
it was I thought of a little bit. I thought of the Greeks because they had all these interesting definitions on love. That when I first discovered it, I think they have about 8 or something at least. But when I first discovered it, I was like, okay, it expands the topic. Because in the beginning I was like, okay, love, that's something that happens between a couple, or like romantic love. Some people share their life like that, and then it has so much more to it. And then the one that I think of strongest when you mention this is they call it agape, or like love in this sense, like they call it like almost spiritual, or spiritual love, or like the godlike love, or something that is grander.
And who is this?
Agape is not a who, it's one of the words for love. That like eros is also a word for love, which is more like the romantic.
Oh,
Uh,
in Greek or
yeah, in this Greek,
ah,
the Greek, I don't know, philosophies maybe, but agape, it's just this, the love that is bigger than the individual, and also the love that maybe if people say unconditional love, or this, if you go to religion and in the Bible, for example, look at the love that Jesus is supposed to represent, it's probably also similar to the agape. This, so it's like sort of in Danish, I know the word guddommelig, and so it's some universal
divine.
love, divine love, would be a good translation. Yes. I just think of that, and that's in itself a big thing, but it humbles me a bit, and gives me something to lean into and strive for. So it's not about fulfilling my needs, it's becoming part of what is there already that is so big and so nice and amazing. When I let that fill me up, I like the idea of letting that fill me up, and so in order to share it and spread it. Yeah. What?
Yeah, that's love. Very, very practically oriented. The way I see it is just the same thing. Like it's a big thing, like this ever expanding thing. We talked a little bit about infinity last time, and I think when we talk about love, we talk about true infinity. Like love never stops. Like it's always love, 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 and this is I think this is what makes it so hard for people to really embrace, because this means essentially we talked about forgiveness before, that you have to forgive each and everything that happens with love, and that can be quite a thing, quite a thing. So yeah, love is for me something I feel. It's not something I'm trying to grasp, because I know I'm a human, so my capacity to understand it fully is not quite there yet. But I can understand as much as I do, and that is that love is infinite, and it's about how we feel about one another, and feel about everything around us, and the life we're living, and ourselves, and our relationship to divine, and what the divine nature is. Yeah. For me, for example, I discovered recently that it's Jesus and God. Like discovered this within myself, and yeah, just came to me, and I got to see this open door full of like infinite love that was just opened up, because I actually gave in with surrendering to my faith of what is, and my wisdom of what is, and that really expands things a lot. It did for me. So if I should put like an example of what love is for the moment, this is the experience of God, of divine, and seeing how I'm connected with that and guided by that always, and putting my whole life in the hands of this um, this great entity that I can't quite grasp, but still I am with this entity. And yeah, I think that's uh, um, a good way to describe it, to put it in like simple, concrete terms. Because it can get a little bit fluffy when I talk about God and all that, and universe and all that kind of stuff. So putting into something like concrete and not too fluffy is awesome.
It's yeah, it's like I think when you mention the word feeling, or how how life is felt or experienced, then I think love can be the state, the warmness, the easiness, when you do feel like part of something bigger. I made a reference before to the fact that if we don't have religion to hold on to in sense of something big, then maybe it was just going to nature, the forest, just looking at the stars, standing next to the ocean. In these cases, or in any case where one might be struck by, whoa, be awed by, wow, this is big, the feeling that can follow along, and the easiness, the lightness we can uh, we can move on with there. It could be how love is experienced. It could be the emotional sort of side to this being part of all this grandness.
Yeah, I've often thought of like the it's a phrase, and a very well used phrase that says love is God and God is love. And I know that this didn't quite make sense to me before recently, because look, if you have to just look at what's the biggest in this universe, what's the absolute biggest? It must be like the creator of everything, the whole creation itself. And with all this kind of malevolence we can see, like humans making, and even animals, and different kinds of things, like even nature with volcanoes and whirlwinds and hurricanes and stuff like that, tornadoes, whatever. Um, to know there's a being that actually can forgive itself for, well, destroying itself, essentially, like willingly give up certain parts of itself, even its own son. When we talk about Jesus, for example, this is like, this is true definition of love, because you're willing to do everything for what is really destined to happen. I think that's yeah, that's what I thought of when you just told that. And so also some of my reflections from what I've been thinking recently, in terms of love and understanding what exactly is love, not just intellectually, but actually um, having that feeling of love always present with me. It kind of alleviates the burden of all the suffering that we're carrying throughout life. That is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not really. Maybe emotion is not the right category, because I was thinking emotions come and go, but maybe we can be in this on the path of love, or in the in that state somehow. Maybe it can be a place to live from. I just was also thinking of a concrete example that, for example, if people fall in love, it's maybe more driven by emotions. I don't know. But then there's a difference from falling in love and, for example, choosing love. You can actually choose to walk the path of love, and it does not mean that everything is easy peasy all the time. Like when you are falling in love, you're kind of blinded a bit, and it's so strong. You're so strongly infused with hormones, and well, various things are going on, so everything feels easy peasy, and you don't. I mean, then after a while, maybe you have to readjust and say, oh, okay, now this beginning, the initial phase is over, a new phase has come, and then we're no longer looking at something that is possessing us in the same way. We have to actually be part of cultivating something and living in a certain way. Can be in a relationship, cultivating that love, and people will realize, if it's long term, that it takes more than just trying to extend the falling in love period. And outside a relationship, it's the same. You need to cultivate something to get in this easiness, to be in this easiness. You can find it and you can be in it, but you can also be out of it. The lightness in life, where you tread lightly, and love is, where your actions stem from. So I don't think emotion might be the exact category to put it in.
No, and a funny thing that I was told about, you mentioned, for example, hormones, and how like sexual intercourse is not love per se, but something else, like hormones triggering and all these kind of stimulants going through the body. I was told something very interesting from one of my friends, and she told me that when a man and a woman, they kiss, the saliva of the man will stay in the woman's body for a long time, like 5 years, I think it was. And all the while, the saliva is in the system. It creates hormones that gets the woman attached to the man from where that spit came from. And this is like complete hormonal, what's it called, jacking.
Hijacking?
Yeah, hijacking. Yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah, I
Hmm.
thought it was very interesting. She also said that her experience was that many confused sex and like intimate contact and all that kind of stuff with actual love because of that
Hmm.
hormonal hijacking, um, which is interesting. Um, yeah, definitely, definitely. I can definitely see how that is somehow like people can misunderstand that kind of stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but truly love comes from something much higher than just like a penis and a vagina and some set of boobs or a six pack or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't depend on something so limited. Like it's
no,
accessible to everyone.
mm,
And so that makes it so grand. And
yeah,
so
and
all
whether or not that you have like a partner or anything like love is always a part of you. You can always contact that love within you. It's just a matter of making that conscious choice and making that decision to do so. That devotion, which it is, it's not an easy path because um, like again, forgiving, for example, is a big one. And to truly love deeply, you also have to forgive deeply.
mm,
Um, these kind of things are like can be viewed as burdens, or you can simply just stay in that love of I call it Jesus and God, you know, because I think that it seems from the scripture that Jesus was sent as God's son because humans are so um, fucked up at this point that this guy would come and actually be like the consecration. Messiah means consecration. So the consecration of God within a human being that can guide the human beings into following the path of true love of God, essentially.
mm. Yeah, it's the message in that you can call it, I don't know, should I call it story? Does it sound too small a word? But the message in the Bible, and especially the part where Jesus is coming along, it's a very, very strong message on forgiveness and on love. And I think it's so powerful. It's hard for me also not to resonate with it. It's hard for me not to like it, because it's just the deeper I go into what is this life about and what are we capable of and how can we cultivate, you know, peace and harmony. It can sound cliche, but how can we actually cultivate these good experiences with each other and with life? And it just yeah, it I see the the relationship with the message in the Bible, and for sure there are similar messages in other scriptures. But I also grew up exposed to culture and messages that was from the Bible, especially. So it's very, very easy to resonate with that story and just makes a lot of sense as I grow older and yeah, dive deeper. Just
Yeah,
yeah, this whole surrender, forgiveness, and love is like yeah, love is can kind of be the headline, and then leaning into that, there's just no way around surrender, no way around forgiveness. It's part of that package, and embracing it, no doubt the challenge is there. But wow,
right. And
it's worth
yeah,
it.
really. And also, so knowing that you don't have the control of love. It's not something you can control at all, but you let love control you, and life is good. Life is better. So yeah, I was asked earlier actually about there's this young lovely woman that asked me like how do you like deal with negative thoughts and emotions and anger and stuff like that. And you know, I'm not sure exactly what I want to say with this, But the answer to that is that when you're connected with what you love and enjoy that, because essentially, like, love can also feel like frustration sometimes, because there's for example someone you love very much who is, for example, ill or something like that. They can seem to have like a very rough time, but there's always like love behind it. There's always like something behind it that has a certain meaning that you cannot see, but in the eyes of love you can see that, and you can be with that without having to know like concretely and intellectually exactly what it is, because
Mm-hmm.
love is this emanating feeling that is already there, and it just knows. You don't have to lean up on any intellect or anything like that to really understand and grasp that. The hard thing is for us humans to detach from that and actually going from heart and then to head, so the head is calm about what happens. You have to continuously expose to those um, impulses that your heart pulls out.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start to rationalize, you're going in a direction of intellectual stuff, and yeah, it doesn't lead to the heart's way, like the God's will or your heart's desires or your life path, or how you wanna put it. It's just this detachment and reconnection is crucial for that kind of calm, because essentially it's calm about the situation that you're in, that you're
Mm-hmm.
seeking, like peace of mind. And for that, it's for us humans, we're giving the great gift of having other sources of entities that can actually help us to alleviate these burdens by knowing that there's a higher power actually escorting you through like a whole escort. You're all right. You're all good. I know it's a lot to believe, but it's true. It's just that faith in that is just, yeah, it's it. It's it.
It's I mean, yeah, it can be one a big one to just take in, especially if this episode was the first one to discover. But we touched upon it several times, and this idea that that we're not alone. It's just it is calming, and it's a reason we spend time talking about it, and what how to understand it and how to just embrace it or lean into the idea. It is, and then it can have many names. We know that, but once we find a way to take it in, this concept of not being alone, not ever feeling of being alone. Once it's taken in, however possible, that is so helpful. That is, it can be so calming. And if I understand it right, when you mentioned the example of letting go of rationalization and analysis of situation, I just hear you saying it's something about just being. And because of not rationalizing, because of not analyzing and judging a situation, then the situation can just be, and it can be peaceful, no matter what happens, no matter how disturbing some might find it. It can also just be peaceful because it's just there, and you can still be, for example, if you're next to a person that seems to have a hard time, just being there, being peaceful, there's a peace to feel, that they can also feel, and has extreme value to bring such a presence. It's and yes, it just goes beyond some rational. I mean, it is possible to try and talk about what's happening and what is the ups and downs of it, but it's when you're in it, when you're just there, it's just peaceful, and it's kind of letting go, because that peace is also not having lots of thoughts about what is what. The peace is sort of the absence of needing to explain, as I understand it and as I think of it when you talk.
Definitely, I think you're right about that. It's a good way to describe it. Also think there's a lot of people that it can be quite for some people it can be quite difficult to simply find that peace because they don't know where to do with all the other stuff because they're responsible beings, so they're taking responsibility for their emotions, but are not aware that they can actually give these burdens to an entity that is built for these kind of things. And so I think one thing to just think about and feel into is these like energetic flows that you experience around you or within you. Because essentially we need like an anchor, like a focus point. If you have like a broad perspective on spirituality, you can kind of get lost in what is what and where does everything belong. But if you have like that anchor where you know and are called to know that this is the right path for you to do, you just connect with that. And when you connect with that, you simply are. You are being that. You can always ask that entity to always be with you. Yeah, because I had it like this before. Like I've been studying very much like esoterical and mystical and different kind of Gnostic things and mystical things, whatnot. Yet I was not really quite sure where to actually what God is, for example. I didn't know like this one source of everything. I could say like the universe and the oneness and all this kind of stuff, but not really knowing what exactly is it and who is it. Do I have access, like direct access to such a being? And just realizing like your place within that um, constellation. So when you have that anger, by anger I mean that when you throw off a boat, for example, not like anger like you're mad as hell, but an anger.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that anger in like one specific point, all that energy, all that wisdom and knowledge is focused upon this one point that it all stems from, and anyways. And for anyone interested, this is a great way to do so, finding that anchor point. Because you can understand a lot, but again, to have something, making something consecrated, something from your fantasy to make that like a reality, you have to have focus. You have to focus that on like the biggest and grandest you can imagine. For me, that's God. Like I can't imagine anything that's bigger than whatever created all of this, like all of us and every little detail, and make sure that the trees are making oxygen so we animals can breathe air, and making like wind circulation so the water is spread out all across like everywhere, and all these kind of complex systems.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine anything greater than what has created everything. So that's as soon as I found that, like it just got very clear. There's no mistaking it. Like there's no other way around it. It's just like everything is in order for this one thing, God, oneness, the universe, what you want to call it. It's just about that anchor, and I think we can have many different anchors and many different ways of interpreting, because I also think God knows that we're different. So we have to as long as we're connected to what God is and understand who God is, I mean, I think God loves us for that.
It's yeah, I think it's very meaningful to have that, yeah, to talk about this focus point. There are a lot of inputs coming to us in modern society. Also, when we are curious about spirituality and all the concepts that we mentioned, there's so much. And what I experience is actually, no matter if I talk to people from a traditional religion or not, there was this seeking. There was this wanting to feel merged with something greater. And it was not just fulfilled because someone told them, oh, there's this God, he's called that, and this is the story, and we're gonna hear about it every Sunday, for example. It was not giving the answer. The answers came later or after them finding out how it works for them specifically. How to put oneself in the important role of finding out and accepting that it is our job or our responsibility as individuals to just open up and let it come to us. So we cannot just be fed the solution here. It doesn't, I don't think. It doesn't seem like that in my experience. And and also not in traditional religions, because people still are seeking and feeling a lot of doubts about what is the meaning. So this focus point, I really agree that it's something we have to find ourselves, and it's so much worth, it's so valuable finding it, so we can live from it and just get that sensation or get that, fully integrate the idea that we are backed by this massive, sort of infinite creative power, and therefore it cannot go wrong. Everything is gonna be all right. Like, because we're just this grain of sand, dust, speck of dust in the vast net of infinity. And being so small, it's okay not to know everything. It's okay not to control everything. It's okay to just let go, surrender, let God, or what is the right name for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, you don't want to know everything either. Like, imagine knowing everything and what kind of responsibility that gives you. I mean, when we hear about people manifesting like something great within a week or immediately, I even heard of people who like made real living beings from portals, just came to the place, because they were kind of summoned there, and objects getting out of like a different dimension, these kind of things, it's these kind of things requires like a lot of knowledge, and also with that there comes a lot of responsibility. To put it shortly, you just had a short break and I had some time to just note down what I was thinking with what I said before. And I would like to just read some notes that I've written about that as it came out. And what I wrote is that we as humans have a way to go, and the responsibility that it requires to do these kind of things when we talk about like these miracles or grand manifestations of such, like this deep wisdom of how to take objects from one dimension to another, consecration essentially. And the responsibility that it requires to do these things, and to who the honor really is. To who the honor really is. Hence, only in few and contemporary times has been able to actually do so. The responsibility is not yours to understand, yet you can practice whatever and whenever you want, this kind of thing. An example of that is that that every time that Jesus like made a miracle, for example, Jesus is just one example of it, but every time he did so, he didn't take the honor for it. You know, it wasn't him. He just said that all the miracles that I do is my Father's. I've done nothing else but to listen to my Father, and by that means like universe, God, that this one source that is emanating through everything. And I don't think it was meant for. I think it was meant for us humans to understand at some points, like as beings. Yet how we behaved, our decisions was doubtful. So we do not have that privilege that everyone can do it, because that would be completely chaotic. So therefore, like people like Buddha and recently a guy in Italy called Falco did something similar. Like there's been magicians all over the world doing miraculous things. And all of these things belong to one source, and this is why they can do it, because they know it's not them per se. It's what they truly are, what comes through them, what is desired for them to actually do with the life that they've been given.
So that is a little bit on the knowledge, and you say it's not really, probably not meant for us to fully understand. We can take steps toward understanding and having this knowledge, but it's not like a necessity, I guess.
It's not your burden to carry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you mention these things, and also, yeah, you mention things that can seem really out of reach for a person when they listen to it, unless they have a very strong belief that is hard to shake by anyone. So yeah, it's just, there are so many ways to live in alignment with this one focus point that could be called God. There's so many ways, and the examples of miracles that we can hear about, I see it as just examples to open our eyes, our minds, to think in terms of miracles, that the world is miraculous, or what we have been given, what we are living is miraculous. And there are miraculous things happening all the time. The biggest miracle of them all might be letting go of wanting to claim the honor and just letting things happen. There's a big shift happening when we can just say, so many things can appear in my life and I'm able to do whatever. And maybe that makes it possible for you to carry a smile to everyone you meet. And without noticing, you became a big miracle, because carrying a smile to everyone you meet is not a small thing. So these shifts that can happen inside us, maybe based on stories, examples of miracles or of exceptional characters that we hear about or encounter, this can bring something out in us, inspire us maybe to live our life in a way without the knowledge even, but just because we start seeing that, hey, this world can hold quite a lot, and just maybe accept it and let it unfold.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of love. The last part, definitely. So It's all love, man. All love.
All love. How about okay, yeah, all love. But of course, that's a word we use now. It's a word that many people know. We also, in everything we mention, comes the link to belief. But how about when we talk about love, doesn't it seem linked to compassion and care? I think you touched upon it because you mentioned a way to be, for example, if people are going for a hard time close to you or some people you meet. And you also mentioned the example of, or we mentioned actually both Jesus uh, and how is love and compassion and care linked? Is it one and the same, you think, or should they be seen as different things, or they just one just follow the other?
Mm, I think part of love is compassion. Like love have many aspects. I remember as a kid, for example, a personal example was that I thought my dad had like he did weird things for what he claimed to be love, and I remember that at least that's what I thought back then, you know. And he said that we all have different loves we give, and I could feel that he was sincere. I felt he was loving, but I didn't understand his love, like not at all, not at all. And as I get older, you know, like the more experience you have, and the more you kind of ask to understand those kind of things, you get to see that love is so much more than the compassion and um, the non-suffering, the alleviation, the bliss. It's so much more than that. There's created both, like there was darkness, but there's been light, and both are creation. It is the creation that is, and you can see like light, for example, is often related to love and compassion and joy and these kind of things. While darkness is evil, malevolence, and bitterness and these kind of things, anger and such. Mm. But these things are essentially coming from this one source, and yeah, I think it's important to give back those sufferings and these kind of tendencies that you know is not like light bound, but is more dark bound, because you need to balance these out in a way.
How can you put words on like what do you mean by giving back?
Right. So again, like the suffering and all that kind of stuff is not yours to bear. Um, in the Bible, it says actually that because Jesus is, if you read the scriptures and that, the Bible claims that Jesus came here as God's servant to humankind, as a consecrated human being, to bear the suffering of the people of humankind. And that's exactly what he did with this work. He was gifted with this ability to bear the sins and all the suffering from the humankind. There's even a point in the Bible where he asked God to, if it's possible, to take this away from him because it's just too much for him. And I think this is important to remember, because this entity, we call it Jesus, which is essentially like the right hand of God, or how you want to put it, whatever you want to call that entity of love. You when you believe that this guy was sent here, and you see that by a truthful nature and scriptures and histories myths and these kind of things and see how they correlate, which I've used a lot of time to study. You can, when you nail it down, again, anchoring on that one individual, know what the purpose of that individual is and why it's so important that we get that name again and again and again wherever we go. It's because that suffering that we think we should bear ourselves is not ours to bear. We actually have a helping hand in this entity we call Jesus to do that. That's what I meant by it. You can of course choose to see differently.
You mean give back? You meant give back to the entity, Jesus, for example.
Give back what is. Yeah, give back like what is not yours to carry. I remember like before realizing this, I was thinking that that's my responsibility, because like as humans are essentially also what Jesus is. We are the same. And I thought, well, if Jesus did all of this, I must follow like he's every step kind of way to really understand and reach that level of freedom, enlightenment, and closeness with God, with the universe. And I thought that was all on me, like all on me. I had to go to the Himalayas and do like 10 years of Qigong and meditations with Buddhists, and I had to meet like 3 wise men and, symbolic terms, right? But I thought that was all me. I had to do all of that, or else I would not be allowed in the kingdom of God, like heaven, And just imagine what kind of burden that is. Like it's for a human, it's just not. It's not possible to bear all of that. You have to be a very consecrated one to do that. And yeah, so when I realized, oh, there's actually this being with me always that actually does this, then you discover like a part of the toolkit. It's like you were looking for a hammer, like all the time you were building like a fence or something like that, and you just couldn't find the hammer. Like you looked all over in the toolbox and man, it's not there. And then you come back later because you're starting to handle all kinds of weird tools like a fang, like those kind of fangs. I don't know what they're called. Ways like yeah, you probably know what I'm talking about. And then when you come back at some point, you're like, okay, I give it one more try. And you just go down in the very bottom, or in a compartment of the toolbox. You find a hammer. It's like that feeling. It's like, oh, okay, this is it. Insert here. Now I can go and make your fence. So it's kind of like that, because we have so much potential, and all we really have to do is just to get that suffering out of the way. And there's always been one here to do that for us. So it's not ours to bear, because we're not per se like guilty of all of that. It's creation what it was. It can be like a small it could have been a malfunction. It could also be very intentional to create a certain balance. We don't really know what it is. All we know is that it's not really for us to take on such heavy responsibilities, unless it's divinely given to us, and we're meant to do this as a consecrated one.
When you say consecrated, you used this word several times in this episode, and can you just describe when you use that word, or how? Just explain that word a little bit.
Well, in consecration, I mean that usually when you consecrate something, you take something from, at least in terms of when we talk about divinity and such, you combine the heaven, the divine, with something physical, something tangible. You kind of connect heaven with earth. So to be a consecrated one, like Messiah, for example, which is like the Hebrew word is consecrated one, the salt one. And this just means that that is the divine's temple. So your body is the divine temple, which God resides in, and you act the will of God through your body. And Jesus did this to such an extent that he is the called upon Messiah, like the consecrated one, like he's the one who really got consecrated, where God felt like, okay, this is very, very satisfying for me. And yeah, that was all for us, because like he gave away something that, or well, God gave away. I think God doesn't have like a sex, a gender, or I don't think so. I think God is God. God is, and I think, yeah, I kind of lost the red thread here.
Well, you replied to
But
the question, consecration,
yes,
consecrated. That
yes,
was the main thing.
yes. So it simply just means that something of divine has consecrated into something tangible and visible to the material world. It's something that has been taken from above and now is here on earth.
Yeah. When you and earlier, so you kind of went into your own landing, it sounds like, almost, at least at the current place in your life, where you sort of landed on a focus point, and how the way to not carry sufferings and heavy burdens is actually can actually be Jesus. And I remember reading about the way to look at not carrying all these burdens, and the way to look at how Jesus carried them, sort of, but when he finally let go, when the suffering was the most on the cross, there was a brief moment of like, why are you doing this to me, God? But then right after, there was a full surrender. And that full surrender kind of released him. It was like he was released. The suffering was no more. He fully surrendered to it. And so this text I read was actually stating that this can empower us. This is such a strong example. Even if you don't look at knowledge and history and want to fact check it, it's such a strong example that the surrendering, and of course you sort of have to surrender to something. So there has to be some sort of focus point. Surrendering to something kind of makes it possible to surrender, as I see it. And this surrender can relieve us. So there's something so powerful in this, in the story, and in the life of Jesus. But I see that even if it's hard to, it's different how people feel it's tangible. How tangible should it be? But however tangible it is, whether you think or look at Jesus as a physical walking body, and think and try to imagine it a few thousand years ago, it's not as important as grasping the possibility of this full surrender. And when you feel a match in here, when you feel there's a match that finally something I can surrender to, then I think we can kind of get it. Then I think there's this relief. And I don't know that many scriptures as much as I know the Bible. So I know I am what do you say, biased towards it. but it's such a powerful story. If other people have similar powerful stories that also could correlate with history, if people want to dive into these things, these can be reliefs. This can be what is gonna set us free. And when you talk about it, it's visible on you that it's freeing. It's visible that, oh, you don't have to do exactly what is described that Jesus did. You don't have to walk through every single step.
No.
It's actually you can skip it. You can go to the surrender part and say, hey, okay, you did it. You did it. I surrendered to that. Because it was
Right.
It was extreme.
There's two things mentioned, two groups of people in the Bible mentioned, especially in the New Testament, I think. It's Pharisaians, I think they're called, and there's Sadduceans. And the Pharisaians is like these book nerds that just read the scripture and take it very boxy, you know, like it's like this, and we're very traditional about this, and we are very strict about our laws, like from the book of Moses, and it's very strictly guidance for us, following it very strictly. There's no connection with God, but only with scripture, you know. And then the Sadduceans is the ones that didn't believe in supernatural things. Like, and how can you believe in God if you don't believe in supernatural things? That's a good one. But Jesus kind of warned us about like these two kinds of people. The ones that are very strict about the scripture and that the book is law and all that, and those that do not believe in like supernatural powers, because if you don't believe in supernatural powers, how can you believe in God? I mean, you can't, because everything is created supernaturally. It's just that we don't see it very often because of the experience that we have now. I think that's you can kind of take that into your life. It's not only religious. It's not only like, this is like Jewish groups that was back in Jesus' time for like 2,000 years ago or so. Yeah, this is something that you can take into your life and also see, okay, I've experienced, for example, that I've been looking for people with great faith, like great faith in the things that seem supernatural, but not really is. Like it's very natural things when you look in like a divine perspective. And you can kind of see these Sadduceans, like if you take like the whole Sadduceans as a group of people, you can see that there are people that you meet with high faith that do not have this high faith as you, and will totally neglect anything of like miracles. And some would even say, Jesus had Kool-Aid, man. It's not, he didn't turn anything into wine, you know, stuff like that, just to give a fun example. And the Frisians is also like those that, for example, follow the laws of the government and these kind of things very strictly, and sees like this is reality. While in reality, there's something way greater behind that, that would make us free from living like, yeah. So yeah, that is something that's not only it's said in the Bible. Of course, it's like in a religious aspect when you read the Bible, but it's actually talking about every possible situation. When you have faith for something strongly and you feel your purpose deep inside, there will come these seductions, like people not believing in supernatural things, and there will come these people who will try to judge you for actually doing these kind of things with your life. Because they don't believe that these kind of things are right, because they think they know better in some sense, and they judge you, even though it was not really them to judge. Yeah.
Is it then? It's probably a trick is also not to judge them. Probably a challenge can be.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you look at the Bible, it says like, "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do." I mean, so it's yeah, it's quite simple. It's quite simple.
And then when you say that, forgive them, Father, because they don't know what they do, I thought of that sentence many times when I didn't understand something, when something felt so wrong and I didn't understand why it could be. I could sometimes think of that sentence just not to try and fall into the trap of holding a grudge towards people. Could help me just to remember, hey, there's another path, and remembering the bad of the people and focusing on that. And also, I want to remember that I also need to be forgiven for whenever I might say something or do something that puts me in one of these two categories that you mentioned, group of people. Because from another person's perspective, I could fall into one of these two categories easily if I'm not aware and if I'm not open. We can also think that we know better, and balancing this to allow for the feeling or the experience of, oh, I have my focus point. Oh, I have something. This is golden. This is I have the truth or the key now life makes more sense. But then at the same time, staying open for the fact that when you explain that key or truth to others, it might not be their key or truth at that time, and that is not wrong. Takes some humbleness. That takes some openness. I experience, and I have to practice this regularly, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say you're doing a really good job, like really good job, because you can definitely sense it, that you have that within you, that little struggle, definitely. Yet you do a very, very delicate job about navigating away from it and staying on a consensus that is like aligned and centered. It's really, really admirable.
Thank you.
Must be the 40 years.
And curiosity, maybe.
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely, yeah, yeah. And I mean, also faith, because you probably believe in something that really drives you towards actually desiring to do better and to expand that curiosity of yours. I
Yeah,
guess so. I don't.
but for sure, I know faith. Actually, another word for it could be trust. The reason that we talked in the first at all, and the reason that we're sitting here during this podcast, it's very much linked to trust, and I know I live my life the best when I just go with the flow, because I feel strong trust towards someone in life, and I just know inside, I just know, okay, something here, and I cannot explain it, and then acting on it without the need to know exactly all the details. That's the big trust. And I know the most happened in my life, and the most amazing things happened in my life when I could fully embrace that. And that is a faith, that is something. And I'm also learning more, and now I can put some words on it. Now I can also talk about what that faith is towards. It's actually directed towards something. And this something bigger than me. It's what it's directed to. And and actually it's easier for me to feel it than to describe it. It's easier for me to go in a state, could be, and also when maybe especially if I'm in nature, some places, but to feel it, that, oh, now I feel it. I feel connected. I feel something strongly. It's easier than describing it. But then I have no doubt. When I feel it, there's just faith, trust. I feel very strong. about me being part of something, me being like an extension. I feel honored and grateful that I'm here, and all the things that I can do, and the fact that I cannot know what's going to happen next. I don't know where I am in 1, 5, 10 years, and it's amazing. It's like crazy amazing. It's like, whoa, what a gift. And yeah, thank you so much to everybody watching out there. And thank you very much to you, Yeshua, for doing this together.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or comment. You can also ask any questions. You're so welcome. And as always, this is a matter of trust. See you.
Peace out.